Don't judge a book by its cover. My father talked about when he was a young man in the 1930s. Back then they didn't have the auction houses for livestock, the sale barns as they're called around these parts. Didn't have any of those yet. They'd just get everything into corrals and they'd sort them out and sell them that way. And the crowd would stand around and make their bids. Well, Dad said they had a horse auction up there at Imperial, Nebraska. So he went up to see it. He said they had the average stock, and of course, back in the 1930s, there were still plenty of people that were farming with horses, I'm here to tell you. With that in mind, though, he said they got through most of the auction, and they always held the best stock for the end of the auction to keep and draw the people and keep them around for the day. And he said the auction was getting on the tail end, about 2/3 of the way done. And he said an old pickup come pulling up there and got real close to the crowd, a tad bit unusual. And he said it had Texas plates on it. Well, an old man got out and he said he had a cane. And he said he wobbled his way up there to the crowd. And he said as the auction continued, he said they finally got to the end of it, and they had a thoroughbred racing horse. One of the guys had a really quality looking horse. So they started bidding it up. And again, this is in the 30s. Depression was still not over by any means. And the horse was running up a pretty good price, and that old man started bidding. Well, the auctioneer stopped the auction. He said, "Sir, I don't know you." And he said, I'm told you got Texas plates, so you're out of state. We sure ain't going to take your check, sir. With that, the old man reached in his pocket, and he pulled out a wad of money. I'm talking something to choke a horse down, you bet. Great big wad of money. None like mine that has dollar bills in it. He had $100 bills, and they unrolled it to make sure it wasn't just 100 on the outside, and it wasn't. He said it was loaded with $100 bills. And he said, "I got 2 more of these rolls in the pickup if I need it." Okay. Auctioneer said, "You convinced me, you can bid." And so they ran up to $5,000, and he had most of that right in there. $5,000. He bought that horse. The crowd kind of helped him get it loaded, and sideboards, they raised him up on that old pickup. And that old pickup, Dad said, didn't look like it'd make it to the next county. But off to Texas he went with that horse. And he said that was a good indication that you can't judge a book by its cover. Out here near Max, Nebraska, working for a few ranches, and there was a stone canyon. So I went up that direction and was looking that area over, and there was a house there, so I stopped to get permission to go on the land. You did that way back then, 40 years ago, just like you do today, unless you want trouble. Absolutely. So I asked an old man back then, I said, "You mind if I walk out here and just look for some arrowheads and mess around a little bit? I don't have no gun, I ain't going to be doing no shooting or anything. And you just kind of unwind and look the place over a little bit." And the old man said, "No, I don't care." Well, he was pretty shabbily dressed. And he came outside and was walking around, had shoes but no socks on. The shoes had holes in them. And had an old junker pickup there. And we had a nice conversation. I walked around his place and came back, and we visited a little bit more, and I left. Never thought much more about it. Figured he was just an old hermit that, probably lucky to have anything. And I was then informed later that I just talked to a man that was making about $10 million a year. He'd hit some oil, and he invested that, and it skyrocketed. Basically everything he did turned to gold. But he was too tight to even buy socks for himself. He said, "I ain't wasting money on socks." Never had a brand new car, never wanted one. Had that old beater pickup back in the 40s, and that's just what he drove around that area. mellow man. You couldn't ask for a more mellow man or nicer man. He'd come up and have a nice conversation with you. But you'd never guess him to be making no 10 million a year, I'm here to tell you. So never judge a book by its cover. That's good advice then, as it is today.